Oh, hey, how's it going? Welcome back to Steve's Project Car Kitchen. My name is Steve. Doing some research here in my Haynes manual, looking for some instructions on how to go about taking apart and rebuilding this guy. So, if you like, go ahead and grab yourself a cup of Jetta juice. Stick around. All right, so here's what I've got laid out in front of me. I have the old rocker shaft and the rockers. I got brand new rockers. I got some split pins and a new rocker shaft. And so when we were disassembling this guy, we noticed that there was a little bit of play in a few of these, and it's kind of hard to get on camera, but it did a little bit of play. And then also you could tell that the hardening was really kind of starting to wear through on a few of these, especially like this one here. Let me see if I can zoom in on that and get it in focus. Maybe. Let's try that. There you go. And you can kind of see that there's a hole that's developed within the hardening itself. And so I felt that it was probably just a smart move to go ahead and get these guys all replaced, and then just give it a complete and total overhaul and refresh everything. So that's what we're gonna do here. I have pretty much everything that I need. Now, there was one thing that was an option for these is that they have these that come that are bushed, and I'm assuming they have like a brass bushing in them. The cost was twice as much, and you also have to have those bushings honed. So I opted to go with just a set of originals, and these came from Rimmers and Ted TSI. So yeah, I think that essentially what we have to do to start disassembly on this is, according to the manual at least, you're supposed to go ahead and undo this. There's supposed to be this screw and then like a retaining like clip that goes underneath that. But then also you've got the split pin over here. And I'm assuming that once we undo this, pop the split pin off, all of this starts to come apart and just slide off. I'm not replacing the pedestals. The pedestals appear to be fine. I will give them a nice little cleanup though in the kitchen sink over there. But yeah, I think this should be a pretty straightforward and easy job. And then once we have this done, all that's going to be left before actual assembly is just to go ahead and kind of clean up the head a little bit. I want to do a little bit of porting on it. So anyways, let's get cracking. All right, so what I want to start doing is I am going to follow the manual's instructions, and we're just going to go ahead and remove this screw. And there's no little insert that came along with that, unless that's what's actually buried into the aluminum there. You can kind of see where something was machined in, but okay. So we've removed that, and now I'm assuming I should be able to just go ahead and remove this cotter pin. All right, so based on the way it looks like this is assembled, I think it should be able to just start, yep, it's all spring loaded, it's gonna start coming apart. So I want to take note of the way that all these are oriented before we go ahead and do this. So the way they have these labeled is even and odd, and you can see that they obviously taper in together. One being the evens, one being the odds. This here is a set of the evens, and it looks like these are going to be the evens. So that'll be an even, 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 and even. Which is a little bit opposite of what I would think, but okay, that works. So let's go ahead and just slowly start to disassemble this guy. Essentially, all we're going to be salvaging off of this are going to be the pedestals and the spacer springs. So let's see if we can just kind of slowly back this off. Okay, so before I go too crazy, I want to do note that there is a spiral spring, a small spring that is right in here between the pedestal and that first rocker. So I have replacements of those. going to just put these off to the side. And this way, as I disassemble, I'm going to have everything in the order that it came off. There we go. This is spacer. Okay. Another spring. Another rocker. Another spacer. Let's see here. That pedestal's probably going to give me a hard time too, isn't it? This pedestal's being a little difficult. I'm starting to get it to move. I feel like it is moving, but it just does not want to really budge. There we go. It's a little better. Woo, that stinks. There's definitely wear on that shaft without a question. And I think that's probably what's keeping everything all locked together nicely. Here we go. I guess the big question is getting this last pedestal off. This might be a little difficult. I'm gonna go take this out into the garage and see if I can just tap it off gently with a small mallet or something. So check in with you in a minute. All right, so I got that off. I ended up just kind of putting the shaft in the vise, and I just tapped it off and with a lead-faced mallet, and no damage or anything done to the pedestal. So we are good to go. Got this off though, but you can definitely see that there's some significant wear on the old shaft. And so it was definitely a good call to go ahead and replace this. I mean, you can run your finger or nail over it and you can feel a ton of grooves. And so this has definitely done its job over the last 50 plus years. And I will have the new one here for comparison. Let's see, how does this one go? So yeah, here we go. It's the new one for comparison. And yeah, definitely a very different one. And actually, if you look, there's machined, it's like a machined flat area here. And I'm assuming that's all for just oil flow purposes, whereas on this one, it's perfectly round. Although, actually, you know what? Never mind. I take that back. You can see some signs of machining, but it's nowhere nearly like it was. So my guess is that's all just from wear, which is why it has leveled out quite a bit. So now that we have all this taken apart, I'm going to go ahead and get these pedestals cleaned up. I'll get these spacers cleaned up, same with the springs, and then we'll come back and we'll start the reassembly process and get this small project knocked out.
7 hours later.
All right, so we're back. I'm gonna go ahead and start laying out some of these pieces. We got everything all cleaned up and ready for reassembly, really. I take some of these old springs out of here. I got some Permatex Ultra Slick engine assembly lube that I am going to use for the assembly process. Let me show how these pedestals came out. They're, pretty decent. Not perfect by any means. Could definitely be better had they gone through, like shot blasting or ultrasonic cleaner or whatever. But overall, I'm very happy with the way they are. I'm going to be replacing these guys, obviously, but I just kind of gonna move these off to the side, and I've kept them in the order in which they were removed. I'm going to just place these up here And it's just kind of more reference for me for reassembly if I have questions. And of course, I got the images and everything that I've taken. So this is what I'm working with for parts. I've got new double coil springs for each side. Got that right here. And I got the new main cotter pin for the end. And then, of course, rocker shafts. And then this is the old shaft itself. So when looking at the shaft, like I pointed out earlier, there's that machined end down here. Well, all these holes for oil delivery. These are going to be facing in the downward direction from what I can tell, because the pedestal with the screw is going to be like this. And so that means that these rockers, these grooves, are all going to be down here on the bottom. So I think that what my plan is to go ahead and just start to put some oil on everything as I go. And then we're just going to slowly start with the reassembly. And I'm going to try to, let's see, line up these even and odd rockers in line, so that way I've kind of got them in decent shape and order as they came off. All right, cool. I'm going to take a minute, just jump off camera real quick, make sure I've got these in the correct order before I go ahead and start doing anything, and check in just a minute. All right, so I've gone ahead and I just kind of went back to some of my images that I had of this, and I think I got everything laid out correctly. It was a little bit confusing because the manual, and I'll show you, this is not the same rocker shaft that I have. As you can see here, it shows a little end cap and just like a standard pedestal, whereas I have this kind of pedestal, and this essentially is the end cap from what I can tell. And so there's the double spring, and also this shows cotter pins in either side. I don't have anything like that. And the same over here, it's a different pedestal. This also does not have the spacers in it that are in between the middle pedestal and the inner rocker that's here. So it's definitely a little bit of a different thing. So really kind of referring back to my images that I took pictures beforehand, it's going to pay off. So let's go ahead and see if we can get this guy put together, and let's see how it comes out. All right, so I guess I just got to pick my poison and decide which end to go for. So I think I'll probably start on this end. Now I will also note that one of the things that I did when I cleaned these up was I made sure these oil passages were all nice and clean. So that has definitely been checked and verified. I'm going to put just a few drops of assembly lube on here and see how much I'm going to regret putting this on my finger. We'll see. It's ultra slick, so it's not too bad. So this was the pedestal that was a little difficult to get off of here too, so curious to see how easy it is to get this guy on. Well, that assembly lube helps. All right. Oh, and it's stuck. All right, so we're back for round two. So I ended up taking some 1000 grit sandpaper, and I just kind of honed the inside of this a little bit, and that seemed to be the trick. So now this, this goes on a lot easier. Here, it helps if it's in. This goes on a lot easier than it did before. So a little bit of honing seems to be really kind of what it needed. And I think that with a little bit of assembly lube, we should be good to go. So let's go ahead and try this again. I'm going to put the assembly lube in here. Put some on the shaft. And we'll also put some on the rocker itself, just for a good measure. Got a little aggressive there, I think. a little more than I really needed. But. Okay, I'm gonna take the spring, got the spring in here. I'm going to just kind of set the spring. Get that cleaned up. Don't want too much. Okay. I'm going to set the spring right on in with the rocker. Okay. And now, trying to keep this hole that's threaded lined up. I should be able to just push that guy on in. There we go. All right. That feels way better than it did before. Let's see if I can get this grub screw to go on in. Cool. All right, grub screws in. Got one rocker in. That's good. Okay, so that's a lot better than it was before. So definitely some funkiness there with the shaft, without doubt. So now we should be ready to go ahead and proceed with putting in the next one. So again, I'll put just a little drop of assembly lube here. Just kind of swirl that around a little bit on in there. Okay, that goes on like a glove. And then we have the spacer spring. And then put a little assembly lube here. Okay. All right, so that should work, and I should be able to just push this guy on nicely. Perfect. That went on good. All right, now we got this little spacer. Again, we're going to do plenty of assembly lube. All right. Followed by a spring. All right, so now, next we're going to do this next pedestal. This guy, you guys kind of get the drift at this point of how this all goes together. But I'm finding too, as I get more and more put on, the, obviously more spring tensions on this guy. Looks like those pedestals do a decent job of kind of holding everything in place. All right, so now it's going to come the last bit, which is going to be this guy, but also that pedestal and the spring that goes along with it. So we're just going to get this all gooped up now. A bit of assembly goo. And just like I did before in the last one, on the other side, set the spring on in. Just kind of get it all lined up. Here we go. All right, so now I've got it assembled in general. I think for the moment, while I check alignment on things, I'm gonna take the old cotter pin. And I'm just gonna slide that guy on in here, just to kind of keep it from possibly popping apart. What I'm concerned about though is the alignment of those grooves in the bottom, because those are going to be important for oil feed purposes. And I know that these are probably going to need to be adjusted significantly. I don't know what that spacing is going to look like. And I suspect that those grooves in the bottom are really going to be kind of telltale. Yeah, you see I can kind of see a groove right there, so that tells me that that's going to have to be somewhere in that location. Now I also got to imagine that when I go ahead and assemble this and actually put it into the block, that's going to set those pedestals right where they need to be. So I don't know how much I need to worry about that. If you know, go ahead and tell me in the comments. I feel like I got a little bit of bind on this guy. This guy's not binding anymore. It doesn't have as much travel, but it's not binding like it was. So, anyways, that's the rough assembly. And I'm going to do some more digging, but I think for the time being, we're going to go ahead and press pause. I'm going to do some more investigating, and we'll pick this up tomorrow and wrap up the video. And that's where we're going to pause right there, because shortly after I went ahead and actually finished this portion of the filming, I grabbed my phone and I recorded a quick video and I posted it to Facebook because I was a little bit concerned about that rocker that was binding on the end. So here's that video, and I'll then show you what we had to do to go ahead and get it fixed. Alright, so I have rebuilt my valve train, and everything seems to be good. I went ahead and I used the Ultra Slick Permatex assembly lube on this, and all seems to be honky-dory. I got a new shaft. These are all new rockers. My only problem is this guy right here. I don't get full movement out of it. I don't know how far it should have to go down. And so, like, this is what I have, whereas on this side, I have a lot more. So for those of you who have rebuilt these in the past, A, my question is that enough for it to move? And B, should I disassemble and take this standoff off, or pedestal off, and see if I can just maybe find where it's getting hung up, because I think it's somewhere right down in here. Let me know what you think. All right, so I actually brought this outside and I found that there's a little bit of a ridge that's right here. And that ridge essentially is what was causing the rocker to get caught up. And so I went ahead and just kind of gave it a little bit of a grinding down. And I will put this back together and see if that helped it out. All right, so just for fun, I went ahead and I put the bolts, or the studs for the pedestals in. I didn't drive them home, obviously. Got to chase the threads on them still, but I put those in. And I just find it really interesting that the valves really do not actually grab and like sit on there as they should, as you would expect. So I'm kind of curious. I mean, they all do make contact, but I'm just curious what your experience on this was. So if you've ever played with this and you have any idea, let me know, because I'm really kind of curious. Again, I don't think that it's terrible. I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make. Never done this before, so let me know. I don't have the springs in, obviously, so the valves are, you know, all the way down, but I wanted to check range of motion, and range of motion on this guy is perfect now. These are all looking pretty good, so let me know what you think in the comments. Let's go ahead and wrap this video up. All right, well, I appreciate everybody sticking with me on this one. I know it's not super exciting, and I was hoping to be building a motor at this point, but I've had a couple of things that have kind of held me back a little bit, so this is one of them. But I'm glad I got this portion done. But let me know what you think in the comments about the overall quality of the rocker build. I think it's all right, but let me know. Next thing that's on my to-do list, though, is to go ahead and clean up my exhaust manifold. I got this guy. And then I want to try to do port matching if possible. I have my carbs over here, and I want to try to get those port matched to this, also with the exhaust. And then I want to go in and actually kind of just clean up any burrs that might be in the head for airflow and exhaust. And then assemble the head. So that's kind of the idea. That way I have that major component done, and when it comes time to building the engine, then this just goes right on top. We're good to go. No having to stop and wait to rebuild the head and get the head together. So that's why a little bit of a change in the plans. But anyways, if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button, click the bell to get those post notifications. And remember, when working on project cars like this, it's okay to sometimes change your plans. But most importantly, don't be that dreaded previous owner. Cheers.